What is the worst Christmas present you've ever received? Story 1. My ex got me a 6'3" guy a woman's medium white hoodie. I was so mad about it. She has a habit of getting others gifts that are really for her. I wore the shit out of that hoodie. Time to mow the grass, time for the white hoodie. Need to fix the car? Yep, time for the white hoodie. She was so mad. Glad she's an ex. Story 2. First Christmas with my dad, his new wife, and her kids. They opened designer handbags, DVD box sets, this was almost 20 years ago, electronics, etc. I got a bottle of herbal essence shampoo. No matching conditioner. My sister got a Hanes 5-pack of granny panties. My stepmother is not a nice lady. Story 3. Someone in the extended family repeatedly gave me alcohol and shot glasses when it was well known I'd quit drinking. They did it maliciously, thinking I'd fall off the wagon. What they didn't understand was that I quit drinking because it was giving me anaphylaxis. If I started drinking again, it's not like I'd relapse, I'd die. That shit gets worse every time. Story 4. A one-person tent and lantern for my MIL. We were struggling to pay the bills back then, and she said in front of everyone, "This is in case you get evicted." We had 3 kids at the time. Story 5. A kitten. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love my cat and I'm so happy I have her. But when my mom got her for me, it was a poorly thought out surprise. It wasn't even a surprise to my grandparents who I live with, and they had no idea they'd be getting a cat in their house. She also didn't provide a litter tray or litter or cat food, so my Christmas became a fetch quest of trying to get together everything the kitten needed with all the shops closed. Story 6. My entire life, my parents have teased me for enjoying soggy cereal. I don't like things that are too crunchy, and I prefer a texture closer to oatmeal. I don't mind the teasing, I think it's funny too, and have made a lot of jokes about it myself. I just like my cereal soggy, end of story. Christmas morning, my brother opens up the novelty bowl which keeps the cereal and milk separate. I thought it was a neat invention, but I remarkably joked that I would never use something like that because, as everybody knows, I want my cereal to be soggy. My parents gave me a withering look like I deeply offended them, and my dad told me something along the lines of, "Don't be rude." Little did I know, they'd bought one for me as well, and I was very confused when I opened it. It was not a gag gift, and my parents were genuinely annoyed that I didn't like it, but I couldn't pretend otherwise because I'd already blown my cover by commenting on my brother's bowl. The gift itself wasn't insulting or stupid, but the way my family suddenly collectively forgot something that they teased me about for 20 years was weirdly hurtful. I still don't get how that happened. Update. Wow, I feel seen by all of you other soggy cereal eaters. Solidarity. Story 7. My husband is an incredible human and talented at many things, but he gave me a truly hilarious gift once. For our very first Christmas together, 2004, we were young and broke, 22, in grad school. He was so excited to give me my gift, and he presented it proudly in front of my family. He got me a mini sampler of perfumes, a book, and a box of high-end chocolates. These are all great gifts on their own, but ironically, 1, I'm allergic to most perfumes/colognes, 2, he had already given me the exact same book a few months earlier for my birthday, and 3, I'm lactose intolerant. I was honestly touched by the thought, but the irony was too much. My sister burst out laughing. It's still a joke in our family, but we were all so charmed by the fact that he'd gone to multiple stores and was so proud. Poor, sweet guy. We're happily married now, but he definitely knows to avoid chocolate and perfume. Story 8. I got perfume samples, the kind you find embedded in the pages of magazines, and 2 99-cent cans of shaving cream. My step-monster was irritated I wasn't more appreciative of her practical gifts. My stepsister got a horse. Story 9. An Atari 2600. My dad had basically no involvement in my life, but thought that getting a nice gift would make up for it. He got me an Atari 2600 for my birthday in July and had given it so little thought that he got me another one for Christmas because he forgot that he had already bought one for me. I know people who obviously had it worse, but this was the moment I realized at 8 years old that my dad didn't give a shit about me. Story 10. One particularly tough year many years ago, I was battling cancer, all good now. Hubby worked part-time to look after me and the kids, so money was super tight. Hubby and I decided not to do gifts for each other. Everything we saved for Christmas went to the kids and to the meal. There wasn't much of everything, to be honest, but we made it work. Kids were young kids don't need much to feel special, so we had that in our favor. A few weeks before Christmas, we went to a charity dinner for people doing it tough, and we were all given Christmas gifts. Most people unwrapped it then and there, but we took the gifts home to put under the tree as there wasn't much of anything under our tree. We waited for Christmas Day, saying it'll be extra special to wait. It made it look a lot more festive to have more gifts under the tree. I was delighted to have something wrapped under the tree for us parents. I felt sad that I couldn't give hubby anything, so this was the next best thing given the circumstances. We didn't expect much, but the mystery and excitement of what they could be added a little Christmas magic for us. The gift for hubby and I from the charity was our only gifts that year. The day finally came. It was time to unwrap. Hubby got a men's toiletry set. I got a little pamper set. Well, the packaging said it was filled with bath salts and lotions, but it was empty. Yep, an empty box. Someone had either donated it to a charity empty or a volunteer took the products out. Either way, the charity didn't check to see if the stuff they wrapped actually were okay. I was so absolutely devastated, but faked delight for the kids about the pretty box it came in. I didn't expect much, but that was nasty. What a way to kick a family when they're down. Story 11. We did a white elephant gift exchange thing growing up. My family would do it every year instead of having to buy a ton of gifts for the family. So all the adults would buy one gift and extras so the kids could each get one gift as well. I was 13 or 14 at the time, and I got Dr. Pepper chapstick and a big toy wooden pencil. It's funny now, but back then, seeing my brothers and sister get money, it was devastating. Story 12. I had asked my boyfriend of 4 years for a nice, not cheap, but certainly not expensive, digital camera. This was Christmas '07. I researched the kind I wanted, priced it out, told him all about it. On Christmas Day, he hands me my gift, and I excitedly open to find a camcorder. He says, so we can record concerts and stuff. He spent more money on a camcorder that would never make it into a concert without getting taken by security than the camera I had been talking to him about for a few months. We ended up breaking up 8 days later. Not due to the camera/camcorder, but I realized he didn't listen to me or take my opinion into account for the 4 years we had been together. I guess ultimately it was a great gift because it opened my eyes to a lot of the shitty things he was doing. Story 13. I dated a guy in college for about 6 months who was really into Civil War history. I bought an old Confederate dollar bill on eBay, went to Michael's for some cheap fabric backing in a frame, framed it myself, wrapped it, and tied a ribbon around to make a bow. He gave me a seashell from his family beach trip over the summer. From before we had met, so it wasn't like, oh, I found the seashell and thought of you. It was just something he already had knocking about in the back of his closet. Dude was from a wealthy family and he threw money around like it was nothing, but he couldn't even be bothered to put the seashell in a gift bag. I broke up with him the next day. Story 14. This is actually a fantastic gift, but I think with context you'll understand why it sucked. A skateboard. When I was about 12 years old, my dad, whom I saw a few times a year, bought me a skateboard after I expressed mild interest. I think I had admired a certain skateboarder and said it looked fun. I don't remember even saying I wanted to pursue it myself or asking for one. I am notorious in my family for having poor balance and coordination, and I have virtually no depth perception. He knew how to skateboard, but he lived about 9 hours away, and I saw him a few times a year because he worked and had 5 kids with his new wife where they lived, so he couldn't really give me lessons. No one else in my family could skate, we didn't live anywhere near a skate park, and there was no one older than me in our neighborhood who could mentor me. I lived with my grandparents, one of whom worked full-time out of town, and the other thought skateboarding was a horrible idea. So I just had this board that I couldn't really do anything with. I tried to teach myself, but with poor balance, coordination, and depth perception already, I never even managed to stay on the board without holding on to something. It was such an embarrassing gift because it was a reminder of how my dad wasn't in my life, knew little to nothing about my interests, and how crappy my brain and body worked together. I was undiagnosed autistic. Editing to add, it really sucked even more when he later taught my stepbrother and little brothers who lived with him to skateboard and put my little sister in ballet classes like I always wanted to but was too uncoordinated for. Story 15. Toward the bottom of my Christmas list, I wrote Nelly CD. My sister and I were big time snoopers and would find most of our gifts scattered throughout the house, other than the big ones, which to this day I'm not sure where or how my mom pulled off hiding them. Well, we happened to find a Nelly CD hidden in a laundry room cabinet, but it was a CD by pop singer Nelly Furtado instead of the intended CD by rapper Nelly. In the days leading up to Christmas, I felt annoyed, and being a kid, I couldn't hide my disappointment upon opening on a Christmas day either. My mom took ownership of the CD, and it featured heavily into the family car music rotation, and played during all our family trips, with my sister and I mocking my mom's blunder, and mocking all the songs, especially I'm Like a Bird. All the while, meanwhile, we both secretly liked the CD, and Nelly Furtado really blew up a few years later. Story 16. A broken ornament. No, I'm not even kidding. My grandpa's wife, not my grandma, gave both me and my adult cousin blown glass ornaments, only mine was broken inside the bag. Now, I wouldn't have cared had my cousin gotten one and not me. We were both adults, so it didn't matter. I opened it and she was like, I know it's broken, but you can fix it, right? It's a blown glass ornament. No, I can't fix it, and even if I wanted to, I'd cut myself trying to. She knew it was broken and still gave it to me. Needless to say, she's not the brightest. Story 17. I don't drink coffee. My now ex-partner didn't drink coffee either. My now ex-mother-in-law knew this. She knew this because every time she came over, she would complain that we didn't offer her any coffee, and we would explain that since neither of us drink coffee, we didn't have coffee. Well, one Christmas, she gave me a coffee maker. Story 18. A taxidermy cat. I was like 9. I had a grandma who was notorious for giving the worst possible gifts you can think of. So on Christmas Day, I go to open the one from her, and it's literally a taxidermy cat. Now, me as a child, I specifically was horrified by taxidermy. I love animals and didn't understand the whole reasoning behind it. Long story short, I opened it up and immediately burst into tears. I was completely traumatized and my parents were so confused on why she would give me that. Story 19. My grandma knew I loved cartoons and animation, and my uncle, who loved Family Guy, knew I hated Family Guy with a passion. So he told Grandma, since I was an adult and loved animation, that she should get me some Family Guy PJs. I could not contain the loathing I felt opening them and seeing Peter Griffin looking at me and my grandma waiting for me to cheer like I have been all night. Turns out my uncle did that to get 2 presents from Grandma that year because he knew I would hate it and not want them, so he took them. Story 20. One year when I was like 7 or 8, I had my heart set on a blue Razor scooter. It was all I talked about for months. Christmas morning comes and my 3-year-old brother gets a green Razor scooter, my stepmom's biological child, and I got an off-brand knockoff scooter, and it wasn't even blue. I remember being so devastated and jealous that my brother, who was too young to even use the thing, got an actual Razor, and I had one that didn't even work properly. Story 21. A 12-pack of Cliff Bars from my now ex-wife that she picked up on Christmas Eve from the grocery store, wrote my name on the box with a Sharpie, and didn't even wrap it. I don't care about getting stuff for Christmas, but I started a new job about 4 months prior and went all out. Bought her a new laptop and my son a Switch, which at the time just released. I bought the Christmas supper, a few outings to see Christmas lights, stocking stuffers, and all the other stuff for Christmas. Aside from constantly reminding me that we needed to make the holiday special, she did nothing. A little appreciation for all the work would have been nice. She bought my son a few gifts, that was it. Everything else was me. Then when the Christmas family calls came in that day, she joked about how I must have been naughty because there was nothing under the tree for me. Those Cliff Bars sat in the pantry unopened for 2 years. She got mad that I wouldn't eat them and eventually threw them out when the box expired, which got a huge argument over my lack of appreciation for the gift she bought. She didn't lack for money as I paid the mortgage and she had a job that paid more than mine even with the new job pay raise. Story 22. It was the presents as a whole, rather than one specific bad present. Background, I was about 10 at the time. My stepdad at the time was a habitual liar who also worried about appearances. Our family was poor, not starving but very little money for extras. So we had a fair number of gifts under the tree that year. I was kind of excited. I was not expecting any big ticket items, again, family on a budget, but it was cool there were a bit more gifts than usual. Also, this was ballpark 1970, so nobody was expecting a new Xbox or cell phone. Anyway, the worst part is when we actually opened gifts. Turns out almost all of them were just our own used stuff from around the house my bastard stepdad had wrapped up so visitors would see a lot of presents under the tree. He tried to laugh it off as being a goodwill Christmas, but it was obvious what he had done and I hated that he did it. I would rather have 1 or 2 modest real gifts than unwrap a bunch of my own belongings. Don't be that kind of parent. Kids remember stuff like this. 50 plus years later, it still pisses me off when I type about it. Story 23. As a teen, my dad didn't have much concept of technology and largely assumed that equal cost was equal value. One Christmas, he bought my brother an iPod and bought me iPod accessories of roughly the same cost. He spent the same amount of money on both of us, and I didn't have the heart to tell him that my gifts, without an iPod to use them on, were entirely useless. Story 24. Earrings from my boyfriend, when I didn't have pierced ears. And when I saw the box, I thought it was a ring and he was proposing. And when I reminded him I didn't have pierced ears, he returned them and kept the money. Story 25. Okay, I was 6 at the time, so it was Christmas and I did the usual screaming, "It's Christmas, wake up everyone!" Then I went downstairs to check under the tree and see if Santa left me any presents. Underneath, there was a present wrapped in baby blue. It felt like a cloth. I didn't think much of it and opened the box. Inside, there was a baby-sized baby blue onesie that said baby boy, and there was a note for me. It said, "Congratulations, my name, you are going to be a big sister." That present still is a pain in my ass to this day. Don't worry, I also got a kitchen set. Story 26. A gift certificate from the spa hotel he was at on Christmas Eve with another woman. I found out because he took me there for breakfast Christmas morning and surprised me by saying he had rented us a room so we can enjoy the hot mineral water. When we got to the room, it wasn't made up yet, so I went to the front desk to let them know. That was when I was informed that they didn't service rooms that were carried over for another day. Yeah, the same room and the same bed he had fucked that whore in just hours before. Sick asshole. Story 27. I was the adopted kid, so I always low-key got the bad end of the stick, but Christmas 9 years ago was the worst. My grandparents were loaded, my parents not so much. My parents told me they couldn't afford to keep me on a phone plan, and come to find out it was because they were on my grandparents' phone plan. I really wanted an iPhone 6 so I would finally have a reliable phone when I was working, driving, etc., and I was willing to pay my part of the monthly bill. I just needed someone to buy it for me because at 16 I couldn't get it on my own. So Christmas comes around and I got a small box wrapped up and it was an iPhone 6 box, and I was so excited I started screaming and hugging my grandparents. So I ripped it open and inside was a note that said, "Never judge a book by its cover." I didn't cry that day, but I cried for weeks following. My grandpa recorded it and posted it on Facebook, and still 9 years later shares it every Christmas for people to laugh at. I don't remember anything else I got for that Christmas, but I do remember my cousins getting a lot of really great stuff from their list that year. It still upsets me, but that's okay.